Hello, everyone. If you are in the room, let us know that you can hear us and you can see us. Let me just remind everybody that we're live. Okay, we will get started at the top of the hour. Okay, let's see. Am I showing up? I'm still getting used to this streaming because it's supposed to be streaming live to Facebook. Oh. And I never know where to find it. It's supposed to be streaming live to like LinkedIn and Facebook, but I never know like where to find it.
Yeah, let's see. Move. Must be on your side. Yeah, it doesn't look like it gives me any visibility into that on my end.
Yeah. Okay, we got a couple people in here. If you can hear and see us, please leave a comment. Just say hello so that we know you're here. We'll get started in about 2 minutes. Oh, yes, Angelita. Okay, perfect. Thanks for letting us know. Okay. Okay, Lisa's there. Hello, everyone. Where are you located, Jordan?
I'm based in Atlanta, Georgia.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
How's the weather out there?
It's beautiful. This is like the perfect time right now. It's like highs in the low 80s. It's a little warm, but not too bad. There's a good breeze every day now, so the humidity hasn't destroyed us yet.
Is it I used to live there, so I remember this time of year, like the pollen was like this thick yellow, like a yellow film on top of your car. It was terrible.
Yeah, for 2 weeks. So we're past the pollen phase, thankfully. So yeah,
Good.
we brought in all of our outdoor furniture to make sure it doesn't get ruined for the season.
Yeah, because I had never experienced that before, but I remember listening to the news and they were like, yeah, so a high pollen count is like 500. We're at 5,000. Like, what?
It's the second you go outside, you start like sneezing and eyes are watery. Yeah.
Yeah, people had to take some serious allergy meds back then.
Yes.
When I lived there.
Still do. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Looks like everybody can hear and see us. If you haven't had the opportunity, go ahead and type a comment to make sure that we can see your comments. Just in case you have any questions, you can just say hello to us. And just in case you have any questions, we are live on, looks like just LinkedIn and YouTube. So you should be able to, okay. Alexandra's here. Okay, so you should be able to see us in those different places. But welcome, everyone. My name is Naomi Granger, and I am the founder of the National Association of Cannabis Accounting and Tax Professionals. And we have these talks a couple times a month. And the purpose of these talks is to help us as accounting professionals, as professional service providers in the cannabis industry, better understand what's going on so that we can better serve our clients. And the most timely topic and the most what most clients are going to need is understanding how to build capital. And so I thought it would be good to bring on Jordan. So welcome here, Jordan Tritt.
Thank you, Naomi. Appreciate being here.
All right. And he is the CEO and co-founder of the Panther Group. Sure, everybody is pretty familiar with the Panther Group. He brings extensive expertise to the cannabis industry as principal and day-to-day manager of two cannabis venture funds. Jordan has been a key player in the sector since 2024. So you're at a decade,
2014.
which yeah, which they are 2014. Did I say 24? 2014. So you've been here for a decade, and they say cannabis years is dog years. So you're like in your 70s at this point.
I feel like it. I feel like it. That's why I shaved, because it's so much gray hair. But
Right. Okay. So, and Jordan has had the experience of deploying over $40 million across 50 companies. So, he's going to bring a lot of information to us, but I would just like to kick this off by just tell us a little bit about yourself, Jordan, how you landed in this space, and and what's going on.
yeah, absolutely. So like you said, I've been in this industry now for a decade. My background is I have accounting and finance degrees from University of Michigan. I spent my first decade of my career in early stage companies, software, hardware, professional services, real estate. So learned a lot about different industries, raised close to $30 million across those companies. So did a lot of fundraising, saw companies grow, and unfortunately, a lot of them end up failing. So took those learnings and entered the cannabis industry full time in 2017. So I've been focused on it, every single day since then. Like you said, we've launched two venture funds, a number of other investments, and then we also started the Panther Group, which is a merchant bank. So we invest and we also advise companies, help them with raising capital, mergers and acquisitions, scaling their business into new territories, finding strategic partners, really just being a finance and capital partner, in terms of directly putting capital to work, as well as we've built an ecosystem of a lot of like-minded investors and professionals like yourself. So we just are, very big proponents of doing the right thing and helping develop this industry in the right way. And obviously, feel like we have a responsibility and an opportunity to be a part of the growth of this industry in a positive way. We know it's been challenging for the last X number of years, like we will, I'm sure, talk about. But fortunately, for a lot of us that are still in it, or those that are entering the space, I do feel very, very hopeful and positive about the opportunities and where the industry is going. It's going to continue to be a lot of work, but we're ready for that, and we just look at it as an opportunity to do it together with a lot of, again, similarly minded people who have the same vision and passion for the industry, and really helping make an impact in the overall world. I think most of us who are in cannabis feel that responsibility and opportunity to impact things beyond our industry.
Right. Okay. And so I guess we can just start with talking about what you have seen over your decade of, working and raising capital in this industry, because I know when I started back in 2017. So a few years after you, but people were just throwing money at the industry. It was really easy to get money. And then slowly the industry started to mature and people realized, oh, I'm not getting my return on my investment. And this isn't that, gold rush that I thought it was going to be. And so then the investment strategies got to be a little bit more sophisticated. And I was just wondering, how have you guys shifted throughout these years in working in this industry?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So, when we started in 2017, I think we, like many people, thought that the timeline that we were going to be investing and operating under was going to be a lot shorter. So, years like, by 2024, we figured we'd have, let's say not full federal legalization, but we expected things to happen sooner in general than most people. And I think that's something across the board that has presented a lot of challenges, like, obviously misaligned expectations and performance, but just timing in and of itself has been something that, as we all know, it's out of our control largely. This is what the impact that we're seeing now. We'll get to about the rescheduling. That was, that's a political, impact. Like, we couldn't have really controlled. The industry's not sophisticated, mature, doesn't have enough capital to move things at that level. And that's what we've experienced is. So, with that being said, like, the operating, kind of environment that we've been in has been, challenging. For us, we felt like from the beginning that, use the analogy of the gold rush, that we wanted to be more invested in the picks and shovels of the industry. We, use that analogy from the gold rush of, okay, we get it, the price of gold, or that may be the most appealing, to be right there close to the product, the commodity. At the same time, we felt like the infrastructure, because it was a new industry, that all that needed to be developed. And so in a lot of ways, that's been the common thread for us. We have invested in plant touching businesses because it's important, and you have to understand that part of it. And at the same time, it's been for us a more of a focus on the infrastructure. I think how we've been able to navigate, in addition to being a little bit more, again, kind of focused on that area, is that the importance of being nimble. I mentioned I came from the startup world, so I've seen and been around this for a long time. So, like, coming into it, I had I believe, a leg up, because the decisions that maybe, like, the exuberance and the high valuations and the things that were happening in 2017, 18, we got caught up in it a little bit, but not nearly as much as some other groups, because at the end of the day, we felt like we have to be investing in businesses that we understand, that we can influence. And we've done that. So we've taken a very active role. We've sat on boards of probably close to a third to a half of the companies we've invested in. So we've been very active. I think that's been a key part of it. And then we've largely invested with other groups. So where we've been the only investor, we've had the hardest time, because, it has taken more capital than I think people initially thought. And so going back to the well, if you're, if there's more people to go and support the company, that tends to be, more favorable, but, that's not always the case. So, but we've tried to lean on those other investors to help support us.
So when you say that you're looking at the picks and shovels and things, so are you guys, I guess, what percentage of your portfolio is plant touching and cannabis, and then what percentage are you guys just investing in ancillary opportunities?
It's probably 2/3 ancillary businesses, and then 1/3 plant touching. I would say is probably, the rough dollars allocated. Maybe the companies, maybe 75% ancillary and fewer plant touching businesses. So we have probably, many fewer. So what we felt like, and this is a good point to bring out, is obviously, like, as an investor, if we were to invest in the plant touching businesses, there's a limit to how many companies we could be exposed to or involved with. With investing in a software that now has 4,000 customers on their platform, that gives us a unique way to access those people that's different than the way that other investors or distributors are thinking about. And so for us, it's been a lot of, like, how do we connect the dots in a interesting way to be able to make the industry smaller and be able to, connect and start having real conversations. So I think that's probably the next phase for us, is starting to go deeper into some of the portfolio companies we have and create connectivity with their customers and offer, enterprise or industry-wide solutions that, we can get out to the masses through those distribution channels, i.e. portfolio companies.
Got it. So you guys are moving away from the plant touching.
I would say it's just that our strategy all along has been to be different than the like swim upstream. And so our access to how we're looking to get deal with and support plant touching businesses is more, we may be involved in some of them, but for a lot of it, it's focusing on providing the infrastructure to support the plant touching businesses. That's probably more of our where our resources will be, as opposed to investing in plant touching businesses directly. I'd say that's a fair assessment given what I'm pointing to. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And I hadn't heard of this, and I'm not sure if this is an initiative that you guys have, but Angelita Green left a question, and she says she remembers there being a roadmap to funding training and someone won. So do you plan to do something like this again?
Yeah, so we're trying to figure out the best way to support earlier stage companies. So one of the things we're looking at is partnering with like incubators and venture studios that have the resources to be able to take an idea from inception to like being able to fundraise. So at the end of the day, I think that's one path that we could look at in terms of providing support for earlier stage entrepreneurs. The other thing is I think as more states, from a plant touching standpoint, more states issue licenses and they try to issue social equity licenses and get those to be successful. I see an opportunity for us to potentially partner with the state, or kind of figure out a different way to really provide the support and the capital that is needed for the social equity licenses to become successful. So right now, I think it's just there in no man's land. Sometimes they get sold, sometimes they don't. It's a largely, it's not working. So I think there's an opportunity for us to plug in there and start to connect the dots. So I think for us, it's about, at the end of the day, how do we solve some of these challenges for earlier stage entrepreneurs? And it's not as simple as just we need to focus on putting money into them. I think it's a combination of providing the infrastructure and the support that capital will get behind, and know that there's a bunch of common efforts going together. So I think that's something that we're thinking about, and how to move that piece forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've also experienced this and witnessed this, because you can't just keep throwing money at the problem. I think it goes back to education and training. I know you guys aren't in the business to provide like financial training to license holders, but is that something that you might be exploring, to partner with some type of educational company, or maybe get the accountants in place that can manage the funds so that they can be successful? Or like, have you guys explored any of those opportunities?
Not fully, but I like what the way you're thinking about it. Where my head goes is, like from an education and training standpoint, there are portfolio companies of ours that have developed good software solutions for that. So I think there's partly, it's like, okay, how do we make sure that the education, let's assume we create that course, how do we make sure it's available and easy to use, and can be we can assess how the information is being kind of received and all that. So I think there's partly making sure that you put a technology and a software platform along with the education to make that more just accessible, and the data to be there of how much reach are we getting. And then I think like from just a advisory and mentorship piece, whether it's a combination of professional service providers, but at the end of the day, it needs to be like more of like an SOP. Here's the best practices. Think of kind of like a franchise model. I think that's where the industry, whether it's called a franchise model, it is a franchise model, whatever. It's, here's what we know works. This has been proven in many states. Follow these rules. As long as you do this and you work with these people, then your likelihood of success is going to be 80-90% higher, or whatever it is. It's going to be vastly different than just issuing a license and saying, okay, good luck, which is largely what's happening now. So connecting that, bringing all that together in terms of including the licensees, like we were at we did something in the DC, a couple of weeks ago, the National Cannabis Investment Summit, along with NCIA. So that, we have a bunch of, new license holders that have been issued in Maryland, DC, Virginia. So that, it's real time. This is happening again. Ohio is issuing more licenses. There's a lot of states that we could get it right this time if we get the attention of the right people, put the right tools in front of them, explain the messaging the right way, all of that. And that's why I continue to do things like this, because ideas get spurred. People come up with, okay, let's work on this project together. I know of this person and that person, and we can start doing that. So very open to starting to, solve this. And we're obviously working with professionals, like your organization, Naomi, where, you guys already, are there to, to be alongside them for financial support. That was one of the biggest things that came out of the panels, was like the reliance and the importance of having trusted accounting professionals, legal professionals. The industry is evolving. Like, we're going to talk about the, rescheduling. I mean, what does this mean? There's a lot of impact that we don't know yet, but we think we will know. It's very complex, very complex.
Yeah. And just, so I had a talk, one of these talks, but it was like maybe 2 or 3 years ago. And they described like one of the best exit strategies that I've seen. So maybe it's that, like, ironing out exactly what the exit strategy looks like. Hey, we're going to invest this amount in your startup, your social equity license. You got to come to the table with a certain amount of money, whether, just so that they have skin in the game. And then over a 5-year period, you get to buy us back out so that you can own this. So, and it was, and I have to go back to that replay, but
yeah, I know which one you're talking about. I think you're talking about the
Curio Wellness.
Curio Wellness, the WMBE. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Now, the person that I had contact with, I haven't been able to get in touch with again. So I'm not sure how that ironed out. We're like 3 or 4 years later. I think it's
still in progress. Yeah, it's still, the story hasn't fully been written, but I know exactly what you're talking. And I was intrigued at the time and felt like it was the right model. So something like that makes all the sense in the world, because like you're saying, you need to have a realistic expectation. What we thought in 2017, 18, 19 was realistic expectations are not what they are now, right? Every business is being valued 4 to 5 times EBITDA. I mean, there's not some magical potion that like is making cannabis companies worth an insane amount. It's very much, what are you producing? What's, how much free cash flow do you have? And, how attractive is that? And how are you going to compete long-term? And it's like any other industry, but there's going to be, unfortunately, I think, fortunately, there's going to be consolidation in the industry. So that's okay if you get consolidated and you join an enterprise that you believe in and that you support, and just happens to be skilled at scaling businesses beyond you as an entrepreneur. Like that is success, is selling your business to a larger company. So I think in most industries that's viewed as success. I think, could you have a lifestyle business in cannabis? Sure, but we don't know what it's going to look like. So it's not like people will just say, okay, well, I'm going to pass this down to my kids, because, who knows what you're passing down. Like, there's so much that's still to be written. So, that you can't have that long-term perspective because it's too dynamic.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a question from David K, and so that, I guess, the 75% of ancillary, I think you kind of touched on this. They're mostly like software companies that support the industry.
Yes. So specific examples are like fintech companies. So these could be companies that are providing compliance for banks, data companies that could be consumer data, could be, product data, could be, healthcare data, alternative medicine, software, software systems is another example. We've invested in some packaging companies, hardware companies, mold remediation, different things like that. So fair amount of across the space, like I said, fintech, payments.
Got it. Okay. And Naima is asking, from a financial standpoint, so we can get into this rescheduling conversation. So do you believe, and I know you guys are moving away from plant touching, but everybody's thinking, oh, now it's going to be easier for plant touching to get capital because now it's still federally illegal, but it's not Schedule 1 anymore. It's more legitimized. They can probably get more banking and all those things. So from the rescheduling conversation, like what has been the conversation internally, I guess, with your firm? And do you think that there's going to be more interested investment opportunities for plant touching companies?
Yeah. So, I mean, there's a few things I'll comment on there. So, in terms of just very broadly rescheduling, it's a big positive for the industry. Like we've talked about, it's the first time that we've been in it, our whole life that there's been something positive from the federal government that really moves it forward. We had a little bit of protection from the Cole memo, but like that was it. So this move is definitively positive, in my opinion, for the industry. I get it. There's a lot of opinions and we could argue this and that, but compared to where we were and where we are now, I think it's going to be a positive. In terms of the impact on the industry and investment and things like that, I think it's going to increase investment, but it's not going to like wholesale change the opportunities that exist in the industry. So for instance, like the flower touching brand. So one thing I am seeing very clearly is brands, going asset light and then shutting off any, infrastructure, cultivation, whatever, focusing on, okay, if we're a brand, we're going to go into 15 states and we're going to focus on sales and marketing, and we're going to find reliable operating partners who we can grow with. So that is the mindset of most operators is, okay, what is my highest and best use right now? Is it the branding? Is it the cultivation, whatever? And focusing on that and scaling. So in terms of, again, brands, not that many people right now are investing in brands, especially flower brands. Just that's what I'm seeing. It's where you see investment in brands is I think more in beverages, especially around the hemp derived side. We can get into that conversation, but and then also I think larger brands, and then maybe you'll start to see some brand houses, so to speak, where they acquire a number of brands. I think we saw Canopy, I think they just acquired a couple like Wana and something. So you'll see some larger brands that are starting to get acquired by MSOs, and I think you'll see independent marketing and investment firms coming and saying, okay, we're going to acquire these 4 or 5 brands. We think they have value. So I think you'll see pockets of investment in brands, but not a huge wholesale change. And even across the industry, to be honest, like I think there's so much still, the backlash of the early days in cannabis, people haven't forgotten. So just because it's like a new time and some things have passed, for most people, this is still an industry that's not really of interest for them. So I think we're still fairly, dealing with a fairly small audience, which, is something to take note of. That means like from an operator's perspective, it's really, really competitive because there's just less capital coming in, which means you got to be really good and efficient with the money that you have. And again, I think consolidation is something that people should be thinking about because, how you're going to scale yourselves without having real significant access to capital is a question. And then how are you going to compete long-term, in this industry? So these are all, important things that we think about and we have opinions on, and we can help clients or, potential investments think about.
Yeah. So, like, what kind of advice could you give us as accounting professionals working with our clients and seeing their numbers and seeing, hey, they could use some capital, they could use a little bit of cash flow here just to get through? What kind of advice can you give us to help our clients secure capital in order to grow or expand or just stay afloat?
Yeah, I think you have to be creative. I think there's not as we know, like when you go down the list of normal places that you would go traditionally, they're not going to exist. And so right by the, by definition, then you have to say, okay, I'm going to, this is not a normal course. So I'm going to have to figure out how to solve this in a different way. So it takes some commitment to problem solving, to being creative, to saying, okay, this might not be ideal. This may be like egregious interest rates, but it can get me from where I am to the next phase. And that will, significantly de-risk the business as an example. So I think, it does take, a, new kind of, there's no one size fits all. You have to look at each opportunity. I think being realistic about like what businesses have value and how much they're worth, and being able to share that with your clients is important, because while everyone wants to raise money and is struggling with it and all these things, from my vantage point, I don't see it changing. There's a vast majority of people that are still going to have a really hard time. And so some people are going to be doing well, but most people I think are going to be struggling. And so just being realistic about what you have, how much energy do you have, what are your options, where do you want to go with this, exploring all that. Sooner than later is better. I don't think the timing is going to help anyone. It's not getting easier and better from an operating standpoint. Again, it may have a little bit of cash flow, but I don't think that's going to change the whole dynamic. So it's a race against time as this industry is growing and maturing and scaling up. And if you're not kind of keeping pace with it, you're in a dangerous spot. And so that's, I think, incumbent upon, people like you to at least, give that vision, visibility into people, so that, just because I see it from all day long. I mean, there's just so many people asking for money that there's no way they look and smell and sound the same. It's not differentiated enough for an investor to say, these are my guys, these are my women, this is who I'm getting behind. It's just really, really difficult. It sounds the same. So what we're looking for are like things that really look different, that are going to stand out, that are, because that's what gets us interesting, is interesting to us.
Yeah. Okay. And so on that same lines, because you mentioned about investing in brands and things, and I recently went to Benzinga. It was during like the 420 week. Were you there?
Yes.
At Benzinga?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there they were like bullish on drinks, and and I had no idea how big. So they threw out numbers like Monster Energy is like $60 billion or something. And so they're looking for that first CBD or first THC drink that's going to be the Monster Energy of this industry.
Yep.
So are you guys like looking to invest in drinks?
Definitely. Our interest would be more in like the manufacturing, distribution, logistics within that realm of drinks. I do know people who are investing in beverage brands. It's not quite our, thesis. But we do believe in beverages, as a whole. It's just for us, we're not really picking the brand, per se. It's just a little bit different focus for us, but definitely believers and see the trends and believe that mainstream adoption of THC will be through beverages, and that will be on premise and through liquor stores that we're seeing, and all the existing retail locations that you don't need a new dispensary license in a particular area to start selling. So that's where beverages, I think, will be a very small part of dispensary sales, but a big part of overall retail sales. And I'm seeing it. Even I see posts on of people in alcohol, and their support for why alcohol is going to be around is that cannabis is being infused into beverages. I'm like, it's kind of like a scary reliance is on the substance that's taking you out. But that's just what I see. That's a trend I see very clearly. The substitution of alcohol with cannabis and other plant-based medicine.
Yeah, I've noticed the shift because, just going out in these social, I was at dinner with maybe there was 20 people at the table, and only one person actually ordered alcohol, and then the other person was eating a gummy. And then, people were more interested in the cannabis in this group than ordering alcohol, which is a huge shift from my past experience where every single person ordered a drink when we're sitting down,
Exactly.
or and just to give some context to the audience around why they're so bullish on beverages is because it's more socially acceptable to just have a drink in your hand when you're in social settings than to smoke or to be doing all these other things. Having a drink in your hand is kind of an easy thing to do. And they're also there was some talk about trying to make it so that if it's less than 10 milligrams or 5 milligrams, depending on your state, that it's just like alcohol and tobacco. It's deregulated. I mean, it's not regulated, but then anything above that should be regulated. So that's not the law, that's not the rules, but that's kind of what the conversation was at Benzinga, that, it's.
Well, just one slight shift, just because I know people will jump on this, is that the below 10 milligrams, almost everyone that I know is supportive of regulating it. It's just that it'll be, it falls under the, it would be, because it's extracted from hemp, falls under the farm bill. So therefore, this is something you can ship across state lines. And so people are advocating for regulation so that we do know what's in it, and that to make sure the dosages are, reasonable. And then I think, like you're saying, in the dispensaries, you'll have the more potent stuff that is higher impact, like a liquor store. You can buy beer almost anywhere, but you can only buy liquor in a certain place because of the potency and stuff like that. So I think you'll see the same thing. Hemp derived beverages will kind of become like the beer. It'll be ubiquitous. People will pick it up anywhere. And then if you want the more advanced, the more sophisticated stuff, concentrates, obviously flour for people, I think that will be sold in dispensaries. So I think that's how it's going to ultimately shake out.
Okay. And so we have another question from David, and he's asking about the data that's being captured by Metric and BioTrack and all the seed to sell track and trace systems. So do you know if, is this proprietary? Do they own it? Do your tech companies that you're investing in, is it getting sold to them? How is this? Do you know how this data is being managed?
Yeah. So for Metric and those stuff that are statewide systems, my understanding is it's all accessible. How useful it is another question, because as you're alluding to here, there's tons of data sources, so to speak. The challenge that operators and people who are making decisions have is, how do they rely and trust the data when different data is saying different things? So the data, game is still to be, there's the winner of data still hasn't emerged yet. There's a lot of different sources of data. I think, personally, we're looking at, obviously lots of different data to try to figure out how do we maybe gain a competitive advantage by having access to this. So a lot of it is really again, available. I think from a public facing standpoint, in terms of them selling it and things, I don't think so, because I think, the fact that they have access to the data is by virtue of them having a contract with the state. And I don't think the state would allow them to, make money off of it like that. So I haven't seen Metric or BioTrack selling that data. I think, again, it's available, but the question is who's making what decisions with what data is still to be determined. I think I would say that in my circles, what we're seeing is an interest to come together around data and say that, for the sake of the industry, it'd be best to at least make a bunch of this stuff available and accessible to start making some decisions and get to the scale of data that we can make those decisions. So I do see interest and desire from people with large sets of data to start collaborating in some form or fashion to move the industry forward. Not everyone, but there is some of that happening, and we'd be open to exploring that with anyone who's that appeals to.
Yeah, and I know from experience, now we do have these huge data companies. We have like BDSA, we have New Frontier, Headset, all these other data companies. I feel like the POS systems will, on the retail side, they hold the keys to all of the sales within each of the states. And my clients, I get they would have a contract with, let's say, BDSA. BDSA will put a widget into their POS system, and then they would collect data from their POS system and use that to create their reports. And in
Right.
exchange for that, they would just give my client access to the reports in that
Yep.
state.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so I think that's where a lot of the data is coming from. Now I realize
Yes.
Metric and BioTrack will have more. I mean, they have all of the data as well,
Right.
not necessarily wholesale prices and things like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
Exactly. Yeah.
and the
No.
way it's presented is not very useful.
Mhm. Oh, point of sale, like you're saying, point of sale have a lot of data. Obviously, there are a lot of point of sale providers, so no one has all the data, and so that's part of the issue. So there are people like you said, like BDSA and um, Happy Cabbage that are taking this information and surmising and using different human and machine tools to be able to provide insights. And so that's the at the end of the day, that is the goal. But I think just a question of how strong are those insights and how baked are they, given how disparate the data sources are, is is really where the rub is, because that's otherwise, I mean, it's only as good as the information coming in. That's the challenge.
Yeah, that's another thing. Is that POS even accurate? Like, did the transfer happen appropriately?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so Tony is asking, how do you see rescheduling impacting regulatory compliance over adult use cannabis activity, Schedule 3 and prescription drugs regulatory model, and why wouldn't adult use cannabis still be considered federally illegal?
Yeah, it still is.
Yeah.
So the where I see this playing out is so first of all, just interestingly enough, when I started in 2017, we were asking the question similar to this, which is, how is this going to play out in terms of a medical play and a recreational play? And like, there's no industry that's both medical and recreational. There's not any industries like that. I mean, there are people who use it recreationally, but they're not. They're not supposed to
Yeah.
be. So where I see cannabis is actually straddling both of those. So from a federal, standpoint, medical Schedule 3, we know what that looks like. That needs to be produced in FDA lab. It needs to be sold through pharmaceutical. That's not going to change. So from a federal standpoint, that's where it's going to be. From a state standpoint, just as we've had all along, federal government has not intervened at the state level. People are talking about a let's say a more detailed Cole memo, so a Cole memo 2.0 coming out to be able to provide additional assurance at the state level that the federal government won't use any resources from the Department of Justice to prosecute at the state level. So ultimately, what I see happening is the states protecting their borders. They've invested a lot of money and time and energy into making cannabis a source of revenue, for it to be regulated, all those things. I don't see how that happens. Like you said, when, the question implies when you have something that's scheduled, a scheduled substance. So I think states are going to continue to protect their borders. I don't see interstate commerce happening for a long time because from a state perspective, A, you don't want the product coming in from another state. And B, how do you trust the testing of those other states? Whereas ultimately, I think, the responsibility, like we're talking about with products being sold, the responsibility is at the state level. That's what you're seeing, because the ambiguity at the federal level from the hemp side, states are now saying, okay, if it's at this level, it's going to be treated like this. So I think you're going to see a lot of regulation happening at the state level. We've seen this in alcohol. Towns are dry, this and that. So it's going to kind of evolve like that. So that's alcohol is a very good, kind of baseline for us in a bunch of different ways. For instance, as an example, in Ohio, with the recreational cannabis now adult use being passed, the new commissioner of the cannabis just came over from the alcohol side. He was running the alcohol division for like 8 years or whatever. So he's a very pro-business guy, gets it. And so though at the state level, those are the people that people are bringing in to run these programs. So I think you're going to, see it evolve and replace alcohol in a bunch of ways, just like that example.
Yeah, and I feel like there's just way too many unknowns. Like we don't even know when this is going to happen and how it's going to be rolled out. And I keep hearing rumblings that this only applies to medical. It doesn't even apply. The rescheduling discussion doesn't even apply to adult use. So everybody's, getting really excited. And if they roll that out and our clients are still at Schedule 1, that's not really going to help the industry. I don't know if you've heard that as well.
No, I haven't. I have not heard if that take on it. And my understanding is, cannabis, once it gets, put on the registry, then it becomes Schedule 3, from a federal level that does only provide, that's a medicinal cannabis. So it doesn't, I don't think it provides any real, practical impact to a adult use cannabis operation, because I think, again, the states are going to continue to operate that how they have been with this being a Schedule 1. So I think from the state level, I don't know how they're going to change it until, like you said, the rules come out and then they determine what do they do with pharmacies. Are they selling cannabis through pharmacies? Are they asking dispensaries to now adopt pharmaceutical, standards and different things like that? That we don't know, but I think it's still, you're still going to have adult use at the state level. Where the medical is dispensed, I would say, is a question mark. But I think states are going to kind of keep it within their own territories.
Yeah, and you mentioned interstate commerce, and that scares me because I'm in Nevada and I know how expensive it is to actually build an indoor grow and grow a plant in the middle of the desert and let Northern California ship their product here, and my clients are just out of business.
Yeah, exactly. So that point though is those are the things that are really interesting and need to be focused on and just made sure that and you can support your client in that, because that is potentially like a major risk. I don't think it's going to happen, but what if it happens? What if Nevada and California sign a deal with, so like that could ultimately turn some operations on their head, which is why, again, like our focus has been more on the infrastructure, because it's like no matter who's got the licenses, they still gotta use software, do different things like that. So it's a threat, it's a risk. Those are good points that you should be thinking about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just assuming that they come up with some type of import export tax to kind of buffer that a little bit.
Complex.
And then I wanted to ask you, I see, David, you dropped a link, but I'm not able to click it. I wanted to ask you, what do you think? So this is another thing that came up at Benzinga. They talked about the Florida market and the possibility of Florida. It's on the ballot this year. If it opens up to adult use, it's estimated to be 3 times larger than the largest market in the country. Have you heard that? And are you guys looking to invest there? Possibly?
We're looking at Florida. Yeah, looking at Florida for sure, because, medical in general, medical programs that flip to adult use do really, really well. And, the ones that if you're positioned well in that, you can do, extremely well. So Florida makes sense. I haven't heard that big of numbers. I've heard like 5 billion as a number for them, for that state. But, that would put it at like the size of California, not 3 times the size of California. So 15 billion sounds like a huge number. I would say, I think right now it's at 1.8. So it could probably get to like 6 maybe or something, in a couple of years once it passes. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. I think we've covered like just about all of my questions. Let me know in the comments if you guys have any other questions. And Jordan, let us know if there's something that maybe we didn't touch on that's top of something that's top of mind to you that we should probably discuss.
Oh, sure. Yeah. So I just want to, I think I might have alluded to this, but, for us, focus, one of the focuses this year is to continue to put together, really quality, what we're calling investment summits. And the idea is to like have some similar conversations like this to really hit the high points of how are, how is the industry going to be affected by whatever the topic of the day is. And so realistically, we're probably looking at doing these quarterly throughout the country. Again, just based on kind of it's not a specific thing. But it's just in general, we want to be out there providing a forum for investors, operators, professionals to be talking and coming together around what we can do to move the industry forward from an investment perspective. Again, having a lot of these types of conversations, figuring out how we can combine forces and do that. So just in terms of like this opportunity, we love doing these things and then convening people in person around different events like NCIA or potentially the like payment banking piece, PBC in DC. So Benzinga, MJ Impact, all those shows that we're involved with and stuff. So just please look out for us, and we want to be a resource to bring good people together in the space. And I'm available. I'm on LinkedIn, and my email I'm sure you can provide to everyone. So happy to be a resource and have conversations and think through things with anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should probably talk offline, because if you're having an event and you want, and it's in a market, and because we're a nationwide association, so we have members that are in just about every market. So if you need a professional to come and speak on a certain topic, just reach out and I can see if anybody's available to help out with your local events.
Yeah, that's perfect, because we're looking to like this the one we did last time. Most recently, we just had like a summit, and then we had some networking. But what we want to now bring around it also is kind of more structured conversations, and maybe like like what we were talking about in terms of ideas around the social equity licensing play. Maybe we have some a specific route around that, and something around M&A. So bringing people together around certain conversations so we can start having real time dialogue, I think is something that we're looking to do. So we'd love to have you participate and be a part of those conversations.
Yeah, absolutely. And we have Marcia asking about the licensing requirements. So nothing is the same across all states when it comes to the cannabis industry. So every single state had the autonomy to create their own rules and regulations. There might be some similarities, but their licensing, their their renewal of the license, their excise taxes, the compliance, everything is so totally different, which makes this industry so much more complicated. You can't just open a store here in California and then replicate the model in New York and replicate the model in Florida. And, the multi-state operators have to start a new business in every single state that they go into in order to be in compliance. So I hope that answers your question, Marcia. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Well, if there are no more questions, thank you so much. Let us know. You said that you've already said that we could find you on LinkedIn, the Panther group. I'm sure you guys have. We're going to see you around. I totally missed you in DC.
Oh yeah, I know. We kind of caught the first half of it, and then I was exhausted, so I had to like recover, and then I was out. So next time, though, for sure, we'll connect there.
Yeah, that's what happened to me. I caught a red eye. So
Awesome.
I caught a red eye. I slept on the plane. And then when I landed, I immediately went to the meeting, and then the next meeting, and then the next meeting. And then I was like, I need a break. And so it was like, okay, the Panther group meeting is downstairs. And I was like, I can't. I got to go sleep for a second or just stop. Because there was another dinner after that. So,
yeah, there was a lot.
All right, awesome. Well, I look forward to seeing you around. I'll definitely be at the PBC conference. I'll be in New York for the CWCB or something. Will you be there next June 3rd through 7th?
So I think I might be actually, because there's an event a friend of mine puts on, the Real Estate Meets Cannabis, REMC, and it's usually around, I think he said it's June 6th. And so
Okay.
if I can, combine them together, but I'll definitely, we'll see each other at the PBC event for sure.
Okay, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much.
All
And
right,
thank you
awesome.
for
Yeah,
being
thank you very
here.
much, everyone.
All right. Bye.
Thank you. All right, appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Thanks. Bye.